Thank you so much for joining the AAJA webinar on ProPublica's local reporting network. My name is Beena Raghavendran. I'm an engagement reporter at ProPublica, and I also lead Young AAJA. And on the call with me today is my editor, Charlie Ornstein, who's deputy editor of the local reporting network at ProPublica.
Hi there.
So we wanted to take a couple of minutes to sort of go through some frequently asked questions and ask any questions that any of you on the call have about the local reporting network, how to apply, when the application cycle is, and sort of what it looks like and what a proposal entails. So maybe what we can do is go through some of our more frequently asked questions first, and then if there are any questions that roll in, we're happy to answer those. Feel free to just drop them in the chat function in Zoom. And if you're unable to do that, maybe if you're calling in on your phone, I have my phone near me and you can just text me your question. So my number is 718-687-7178. So we'll go ahead and just kick it off with some frequently asked questions and then leave some time open for folks to chime in if they have anything else they would like us to address. So we are right now discussing the applications and kind of the proposal process for the local reporting network round that will open in October. And so the applications are going to open for that cycle October 7th. And the applications, the deadline is October 30th. So you basically have most of this month to craft a proposal, put it together, and then submit it by October 30th. But one question, I mean, we get a lot of questions about what goes into a strong proposal, what makes a proposal sort of stand out to us in the pitch and application process. And I just want to give Charlie a second to talk about some of the factors that go into making a really strong local reporting network proposal for us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is the question we get most often. We are not looking to fund sort of daily beat coverage in a topic, but rather to help you tell a story in a project that you otherwise wouldn't tell without our support. So what are we looking for? Well, first, we're looking for a story that is an accountability story, where you have a clear sense that something is wrong, that someone is responsible, and that something likely needs to change. So that's really important for us, as opposed to asking questions like whether something is happening or if something is happening. We want a sense that you have, whether it's an anecdote or documents or data pointing to something is happening, and you want to explain what it is and hold somebody to account for a problem. Second thing we look for is that we want stories that have a sense of place. So we're not looking for projects that localize a national problem, but rather ones that are important to your area and where there's a particular reason that your region stands out. So we got a lot of pitches in our initial round about the opioid epidemic and the effect it was taking all across the country. And we didn't end up picking any of those because they all felt very similar, and it was hard to decide whether to place the project in Des Moines or Duluth or Detroit or Denver for that matter. And so we were trying to look for places where we could see that there was a clear reason that the story had to be told in your location and that it had to be told now. That doesn't mean that your location has to be the place where things are the only place that things are happening, but rather that there's a special reason to tell it in the location that you are. That could be that something is dramatically increasing. That could mean that there's been some sort of a change. It could mean that you have the most pronounced problem in the country. It can take a lot of different forms. The other thing we're looking for is we really are looking for a diversity of topics, a diversity of communities, a diversity of viewpoints, and that reporters who apply show us that they have the experience covering these topics and covering these communities. So diversity is very important to us here at ProPublica, and that's one of the factors that we take into account as we're reviewing these proposals.
Thanks, Charlie. And to add to that, I just dropped into the Zoom chat a link to an annotated proposal. It was actually a successful proposal from a couple of rounds ago that this is a reporter who's now working with us as part of our local reporting network this year. And so we actually went through and annotated kind of what made this a really strong proposal and a couple of points that they made really nicely. And so again, a big question that we get is often about the proposals and how to craft it and how long it's supposed to be. And so if you have any of those questions, the link that I put in, which is a document cloud link, is like a really good model on potentially how it could look for you.
Yeah, and we're going to be adding a second one too, Bina. In about a week, we're going to be posting a second annotated proposal to help folks potentially look at 2 different models for how some of this year's current reporters pitch their stories.
Yeah, and if you want to stay in the loop to receive any tips on the application process, any annotated proposals, what I'll do is I'm going to also put a Google form link into the Zoom chat, and you can sign up and put any of your questions in there. And that's a good way for you to sort of stay in touch with us and stay in touch with people who can help you and sort of give you feedback on your application and proposal process. Another big question that we get is what this relationship looks like between ProPublica and the editing team and all the other teams at ProPublica that help with local reporting network projects, and the local reporter and the home newsroom and the local editor. So Charlie, maybe if you can talk a little bit about kind of the collaborative process that happens between the 2 newsrooms.
Well, this is very much about collaboration. You stay in your newsroom working with your colleagues, working with your editor. You remain on your newspapers or news organization's payroll. We're not looking to change that at all, but rather we're collaborating with you. So you're working with an editor at ProPublica and staff like Bina on the project, and we work with your news organization to tell it in the best way that we and you know how to do. And that takes different forms with different newsrooms. We really try to customize the editing process to meet the needs of each newsroom without trying to do a one-size-fits-all. So in some cases, we find that editors are strapped and don't have the time to sort of devote to project editing, which is really intense. And so they ask us to take the lead on that, and they sort of do a back read. We're okay with that. There are other situations where editors ask to take the lead on the local side, and we do the second read. We're okay with that. There are other times where we read it together and collectively offer feedback, and that's worked as well. So it really is designed to be what works for each individual project. Bina, you are.
Sorry, I'm muted.
No problem.
Yeah, and you know, another question that I know that has come up for us is sort of in the proposal process and kind of in sort of navigating this whole ecosystem of your newsrooms. Sometimes I know reporters have questions on like, how do I convince my editor to sort of let me take a year and do this investigation? So I actually sort of went ahead and sort of crowdsourced that question in our newsroom. And I know Charlie has some things he'll want to add on that too. But kind of one answer I received was like, it's really good to also outline for your editor all of the benefits that come with doing this project. I mean, not only is it great visibility and growth for you and your career, but it's also a huge opportunity for both of our newsrooms to work together. We really do have kind of wraparound resources for the local reporting network, in that you are not only, it's not just you that's a part of our family, but we try to sort of extend offerings of our resources and our trainings also to people in your local newsroom. So sometimes we'll do like brown bag seminars on like engagement reporting, which is what I do. And we'll invite, you know, in our whole partner newsroom to sort of join us and be part of that. So that's kind of one thing I would offer for that. But Charlie, what can you add on how to sort of convince your editor to let you apply for an opportunity like this?
Right, so we pay your salary and benefits for a year, and that enables your newsroom to go and hopefully devote that money to backfilling your position. So they actually go up a position for the course of the year. They're not losing resources. So while they're technically, quote unquote, losing you from your ability to do daily stories, hopefully the money that we're paying your news organization entitles them, it allows them to hire somebody else. So they get both the benefit of a really great investigative project, but also the value of the work that you're putting in on a day-to-day basis, and you're not going anywhere. But I do think what Bina said is right, which is what we try to do with each newsroom is bring them, the whole newsroom, into sort of the collaboration. So that means that you're invited to brown bag lunches that we have here at ProPublica headquarters that we, do with all of our local reporting network partner newsrooms, but also our editors visit your newsroom over the course of the year a couple different times, and we have brown bags and other things. So the goal is to help your newsroom think creatively about the way in which they do project and accountability journalism, and anything we can do to add value to that, we do. And that can even be consulting on other stories that other reporters are working on.
And so to that point, if you or your editor has any questions, or if you have any questions on kind of any other points you can make to sort of in your pitch to your editor, feel free to get in touch with us really anytime. I'm going to say our email address here, but I'll also drop it in the chat. And if that's kind of an open door, feel free to get in touch with us at any point. And that's an email that goes right to our team. And so someone will get back to you. But that email address is local.reporting@propublica.org. I know that another question we get is often from people who might be freelancers or might work in really small newsrooms, and just kind of what that relationship can look like working sometimes maybe with like editors you haven't really worked with before, spent a whole lot of time before, and then also working with people at ProPublica that are all kind of new faces that you're trying to build relationships with. And so particularly for folks in small newsrooms, Charlie, can you talk a little bit about just, what the experience has been like working with reporters who might not be from big newsrooms, or working with reporters who are freelancers?
Yeah, I think one of the misperceptions is people think I can't work with you unless I come from a big newsroom. And yes, we work with some larger newsrooms, whether it's the Sacramento Bee or the Miami Herald, but we also work with even more smaller newsrooms, which can range from, a weekly newspaper in Malheur, Oregon last year that had 2 full-time staff reporters, to the Frontier in Oklahoma, which has 4 staff reporters, to the Southern Illinoisan, which has 4 staff reporters as well. So, the reality is that we have a whole lot of partners at organizations big and small. MLK 50, Justice Through Journalism, which is Wendy Thomas's news organization in Memphis. She's the only full-time staffer there. And at the Mississippi Center for Investigative Reporting, which Jerry Mitchell started, it's he and an editor and a Report for America reporter. So again, the main thing is we're not looking for size. We're not looking for organizations that, sort of check boxes as far as being traditional. We are looking for really great ideas and the passion among the reporters to carry them
out. Can you talk a little bit, Charlie, about, I know sometimes a question we have is around, how does it work with ProPublica paying your salary and our benefits involved? And can you talk a little bit about just the logistics, how that works?
Sure, yeah. So essentially what we do is we send your news organization 1/12 of your salary each month, plus a 23% stipend for benefits. So if your news organization provides you access to benefits, you have the ability to opt in or opt out. They get that 23%. If they do not provide you benefits, then we give them the taxable portion of your Social Security payments, and then we would write you a check for the difference in that. So you would actually get paid the money so that you could purchase benefits. We believe that reporters working on stories should have access to benefits, but that's not variable. We give a set 23% for benefits, which is our standard benefit package amount. And that's also paid monthly.
Great. I know we have some folks who joined kind of more recently on the call. So just sort of a reminder, feel free to drop any questions that you have into the Zoom chat, and we'll make sure we get to them. Otherwise, we might just do kind of a few more minutes of frequently asked questions. So feel free to drop those questions in. Another question I know we get is kind of an expectation around story count. People will ask us, well, how many stories am I expected to write? Yeah, how would you respond to that, Charlie?
So it's hard to give a definitive answer to that, because from our perspective, we want you to tell the stories that you can tell. We sort of think from a bigger perspective. So, we like our stories to stand out, to be meaningful, so that readers who look at it can understand that this is something that's special, this is something that's different. So we don't really chase a whole lot of dailies. I think what we've seen, to a certain extent, is that most of the reporters in the network produce anywhere from about 4 to 9 large pieces over the course of the year, and it really varies by partner.
I know we have one question that came into the chat from Thomas, which is, have you collaborated with newsrooms in the Pacific Islands? If so, how has that collaboration looked in the past?
We have not. Our furthest partner so far is Alaska, which that partnership has been wonderful. We've had so far, I think we've worked with or are working with 28 different partners, although one of them we've worked with twice. So I guess 27 different partners in a lot of states, but have not worked in the Pacific Islands.
I wanted to address some of the resources that you can expect to get at ProPublica if you do get selected for the local reporting network. So I'm an engagement reporter, and my team is one of several that has folks on it just devoted to working on local reporting network projects. And so we really do believe that when you kind of get awarded this grant to work with ProPublica, that you also get access to kind of all the ProPublica resources and support. And so we really are also here to collaborate with you and work with you on sort of different facets of your project. So our work can look like sometimes, you know, being there for consulting and being there for advice, to sort of bounce questions and answers off of. So in addition to the engagement team, we also have an audience team, a design and production team, a news applications and data team, a research team, and an audience team. And so there are folks on all of those teams that are sort of here to work with you. So sometimes it can look like consulting. Sometimes it can look like being right in there with you, doing reporting, doing, you know, critical research and data work. And so it just sort of depends on kind of what your stories need and sort of what it warrants. So just a thing to keep in mind when you're putting together the proposal, that you're not in it alone. There are plenty of people who are here to help.
And I think, you know, I would just add that one really nice thing that you can do in order to get a sense of what it entails is look at the projects we've already published as part of the local reporting network, and you can see that you can see the elements that come together for those projects. So those are all on the local reporting page. Bina has not posted the main link to the local reporting page, but can certainly do that. And we have a list of all of our current projects and the past ones. So it's really valuable to take a look at those, read through those. That will give you a good sense of the types of projects that we think are ProPublica projects and that fit within this. I mean, what we're you know, really looking for are projects that meet our mission, which is stories with a moral force, stories that hold people accountable, and stories that have the potential to establish impact. And so when you're thinking about whether your project is sort of appropriate for the local reporting network, those are questions I would encourage you to keep in mind.
I have just a couple more frequently asked questions, so maybe we'll go ahead and wrap it up in a few minutes if there aren't any more questions. So feel free, if you have anything you'd like to ask, feel free to drop it in our chat, but I'll also sort of provide a couple ways that you can stay in touch with us if you have more questions down the road. So maybe just a question to kind of wrap it up. Back to the proposal, so sometimes we get questions about the level of detail that should be included in kind of this initial proposal, like how much of the reporting needs to be done before you submit something, how long should the application be? I think that Sacramento Bee proposal, the document cloud that we
was pretty short.
Was pretty short, but is maybe a good model if you want to take a look at that. But Charlie, I know we get that question a lot, so what would you say to that?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say what we want to see is enough evidence that there's a there. So we get a lot of applications, and we're sort of placing our bets on the projects that we think are going to have the highest probability of landing. So we want to see that there's evidence that you have that there is something wrong, that it's more than a hunch. We want to see whether it's an anecdote or data that you've gotten or documents that you received or a source that you don't need to name the source, but to let us see that there is a there. We don't expect you to put 12 months of reporting into a pitch, because indeed you're looking to get 12 months of time to do reporting. So we don't expect you to front load that before you submit the pitch. But we do want to have a sense of like, how likely is this that what you're thinking is correct? And also, frankly, we want to make sure that that you've thought through what are the stories that may come out over the course of the year. So we'd like to see individual story ideas beyond just a broad framework.
Great, thank you. With that, we might go ahead and just wrap it up. I just want to go through some of the links that I put in the chat to make sure that you all have seen them and go through kind of a couple key dates. The first link I put in is kind of a write-up on sort of what the local reporting network is and why we do it. So that's maybe good for you to take a look at if you weren't on the first part of the call where we sort of explain how it all works. The second link is sort of how to apply to the local reporting network. And so here, that's going to have sort of all of the answers to questions like what goes into my application, what are you looking for, how can I get my pitch to stand out. But critically, the important dates are October 7th, which is when applications are going to open for our October round of kind of applications for the local reporting network, and we're going to close that round on October 30th. So you pretty much have all of October to get an application into us. And Charlie, can you chat a little bit about what people can expect and when they can maybe expect to hear back on things?
Yeah, so we will make the decisions by later this fall, by December 1st. If we have questions, we'll get in touch with you. We do interview folks who are finalists, and so you know, I would say by late in November, you should hear from us if you're a finalist. And then we get you set up to begin on January 2nd of the new year. And then you spend 12 months working with us. And if you don't succeed, because a majority of folks don't, I wouldn't be discouraged. A number of projects that we've selected even in the second year were folks who had applied more than once. And so it's a good learning experience. But I would underscore what Bina said, which is folks who submit their ideas to us in advance for feedback and get those ideas before they turn in their applications stand a much better chance. And that stands to reason, right? Because you're hearing the questions we're going to ask of your application before you turn it in so you can address them, rather than leave it to our screeners asking why something wasn't addressed. So I do think if you have an idea, feel free to shoot us an email, local.reporting@propublica.org, and we will offer some feedback or some questions or comments, and we hope you can integrate those and make your proposal even stronger.
For sure. And one thing I'll add to that is, you sort of never know if you're going to make it if you don't try. And so sometimes, we know it's like a really competitive process, but kind of you are the person who can sort of be the biggest advocate for yourself and sort of take the leap and take the chance. And so I would just encourage you, even if you're like a little bit interested, stay in touch with us, put together a proposal, give it a shot, because we've gotten some really great projects from people who've taken the leap. And I know it's really scary to apply to things, but I would just really encourage that even if you're a little bit interested, that you put an application in. Some more links that we have in the chat. We have the annotated document cloud proposal from the Sacramento Bee. We have a link to kind of our local reporting network page where you can see all of our projects from this year. And to emphasize what Charlie said earlier, looking through that also gives you a really good perspective on kind of the scope we're thinking about, and kind of some of those other things that just might be helpful for your own framing. We also have a link to a Google form that you can fill out to stay in touch with us. That link is in the chat, but it is pretty easy. It's propublica.org/LRN questions. So it pretty much pops up a Google form, asks you to fill in some information, and if you have any questions for us. And that also comes right to our team. And so that's a really good way to keep in touch with us. And then if you have any general questions, that email that Charlie said, local.reporting@propublica.org, is kind of the main way that you can stay in touch with us. So if there aren't any other questions,
and I would just say, our team loves the local reporting network. We have a staff that is totally invested in this and wants to see folks succeed. And so please don't be intimidated to reach out to us. We want to help you make your idea better. And frankly, there's little that we like more than even seeing folks who were not chosen pursue their ideas and watch those get published. It gives us satisfaction as well. So let us be a part of helping you land a really important story in your community.
That being said, thank you all so much for coming on the call, and thanks to Charlie and Daniel for organizing. So you know how to get in touch with us, and we really look forward to staying in touch with you all. Thank you.
Thanks.